knowledge can really help give you an edge, give you understanding, and that leads to tolerance. So I think it's good to watch this video and compare it with the previous one I just uploaded, reviewing the Spyderco Carahawk. The Carahawk was made in Seiki City. This one here is made in Taichung, Taiwan. Now, without getting into too much politics of whether or not is it right for an American company to outsource, is it right to help raise a living standard for a different country? Main thing here is, so far the Taichung Taiwan knives, their construction I think is really good, and that's why I want you to watch the Carahawk video and then see this video. And I think between those two you're going to see what I'm talking about. For those who didn't have much tolerance for that video, can really get an idea of why I said the things I did. For those of us who are into knives and we're familiar with a lot of these features, we own quite a few, I think the Chokwe is for those kind of people who really know a little bit more. And so for example, let's say you're thinking the Chokwe is maybe kind of fragile, it's not that robust, but the titanium on a Sebenza is barely thicker, not even by millimeter, maybe half a millimeter thicker on the lock side. So this lock bar on the Chokwe is contoured differently. So maybe it looks a little bit thinner, it's got a long profile, but you can see it's not a slouch. You've seen me test the small Sebenza and that thing was a tank. So this knife, you're getting a strong lockup. So that's something you don't have to worry about. Then comes now the liner side. They've used stainless steel, which is nice, is rigid, makes more sense, especially for a thin layer. Besides adding a coat of oil, they've also taken the liner to a somewhat level of polish. You don't see the grind lines. It's actually even got slight, it looks like it's been tumbled. When the knife is assembled, you can see it even has a sort of gloss finish to it. It's not left undone. It's rounded and all across, so it's comfortable to the touch, and also that helps prevent rust from forming. Thick phosphor bronze washers. You have the stop pin, goes into the titanium, then also through the liner and into the G10 scale. What's really wonderful again is you see the Sage 2 construction. The 3 screws are all the same size. They're swappable, and you can see the knife stays connected. These pieces are, these spacers, they're custom machine parts. It seems like the same ones on the Spyderco Sage 2. Just an awesome component. It has a kind of a spacer built in, so it's very structurally strong, and it stays connected. You're not having tons of pieces fall apart. You can see, I'm showing this knife and it's no problem. So the pivot is a female and male. It's slotted. They didn't carbonize the lock bar. That is honestly just a miss, a sort of, perhaps just either a miss sight, like they just didn't notice that aspect, or it was just, I don't know. I really think they should have done that. It does look heated, like it's actually slightly bronze there, but it's not carbonized. Where the lock bar contacts the blade, they've gone in and polished that area. So you can see right there where the lock bar contacts, you don't see any grind lines because they've gone and really polished it up. The main thing, this knife is literally like a breeze. If this is going to be a utility folder, if you're going to use this in the kitchen, if you're going to use this every day for your normal cutting tasks, because it is a thin blade, you can see between the construction of having that nice polished liner to the polished lock surface for the frame lock. It's got a strong frame lock equivalent to a small Sebenza. Overall, it's a very well-made knife. So that's nice. In terms of engineering, having that be so narrow and close to each other, this design lends itself to having a really great then pivot tolerance. It's very simple. Didn't have to have a bushing, and you can see Nice to deploy, smooth. It's the same blade thickness as a small Sebi. You get towards the tip, the Sebenza is much stockier. That is attributed to the fact that the Sebenza has not a full flat grind. Just like how the Sebenza has sort of that, old school handle. People always talk about sort of like maybe I don't know, some people call it a coffin shape. Chokwe is very similar. See? Chokwe obviously could be compared to a large Sebenza, but I don't own a large Sebenza. But why am I comparing this so much to this Sebenza now is that that's what I view this knife basically as. If you like knives and you like Sebenzas, then I think you really have to look at the Chokwe, because this is like Spyderco's Sebenza. I would really call this that. If you wanted minimalism, lightweight, but you wanted Spyderco's full flat grind, the Spyderco opening hole, ambidextrous, easy to deploy, fast, you got that somewhat tactical feature, basically that's what the Chokwe is. It is a Spyderco's version of a gentleman's folder. Which means, yes, the steel is going to be harder, because Spyderco likes to really take the Rockwell on their S30 high. But then you also get that safety choil that Spyderco likes to implement on a lot of their folders. So if you look at that in terms of performance, if a Sebenza was always one of those knives you wanted, and you hear so many good stories about its utility, its ease of maintenance, it's just kind of very functional knife, then that's what you get here. This knife is comparable in weight to the small Sebenza, but it's a much larger knife. See, you get more handle, more blade. In terms of using it, you never feel like the knife is unwieldy. It does feel like a utility blade though, not necessarily a tactical knife, even though you could now because of the Spyderco features like the safety choil and the tactical, the spider hole, which allows a lot of deployment options. And it is smooth to flick open. Now the roll and application, well then of course I would classify this knife as more for utility. Given that the knife is easily maintained, and also fits in your pocket nice and easy to carry, compact, and it gives you a large knife, I think it's great for general EDC. Cutting food, cutting boxes, working in general. This is a great knife for that. You can see they've raised the tip slightly up right here, the final point, rather than having a full Warncliffe, just to kind of bring the tip up in terms of thickness. So it's a purely functional knife. I mean, definitely this knife is not very fancy. It's very straightforward in terms of accomplishing a lot of nice utilitarian goals. And I think it's very user friendly. I mean, it has less components than the Sebenza. It has easier deployment, and you guys didn't know this, but I actually switched the screws around. When I reassembled it, I used the screw that was here for here, and you can see the tolerances here is just easy for most people to utilize. My final thoughts for the Chokwe is I definitely place this knife as one of my top 3 Spydercos, if not also one of my top 3 favorite folders ever made. The other 2 Spydercos right now are the Paramilitary 2, and that's because it has Spyderco's sort of signature shape, the leaf-shaped blade, the safety choil, and it has an easy deployment. The Spyderco hole works really good on this knife, and then it has their compression lock, which is unique to their company. The other knife is a Sage 2, which I don't have. I sold it to a friend, and the Sage 2 made in Taichung, Taiwan, and it emulates the Sebenza. It gives respect to Chris Reeve and his frame lock. And so that's pretty much why I like this knife, because you have the same level of precision in terms of how it's made. The finish is finished where it matters. The whole entire knife is comfortable. Every surface that needs to be polished is polished. The only thing missing is some carbidizing, and that's easily fixed. So if anyone is interested, I'll be carrying these on my site, and I got a really good deal, so hopefully I can pass it on to you. And I think this is just a knife that I really think you guys should experience. Thank you.